All right, good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning for me. So today what I'm going to be doing is I'm not going to be streaming for super long, but what I thought I'd do is just kind of take you along with building of the sort of part 3 of my new RecyclerView tutorial series. So initially what I was going to do is this series was basically just going to be sort of a new RecyclerView tutorial. Of course, RecyclerView tutorial was the first thing that I actually ever did on YouTube as far as Wise-Ass is concerned. And so what I wanted to do, what it kind of morphed into is originally it was just going to be a redo of the RecyclerView tutorial. But then I kind of realized, I was going to do the RecyclerView app, and then I was going to do like another app to demonstrate all kinds of different backends. And I'm actually kind of, oh, not sure if I just hit, oh yeah, great. Sorry, I hit the space bar and then OBS Studio decided that that meant I should record and stream at the same time, which is not ideal. Anyways, let me get out of OBS here. So basically, what I'm toying with the idea of doing is actually making a couple different branches of the RecyclerView app once it's sort of finished, and then demonstrating a whole bunch of different backends that way. But I don't know, we'll kind of see. It's really just morphing into what I think it is. And what's up, Chatan? Good to see you, buddy. And we've got Manik. Well, he did say hello, but the message is retracted, so I guess I'm not deserving of... Oh, is the sound quiet? Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on, because like I can't really turn this microphone up any more than it already is, but I will try. Let's see here. Just make sure that it's actually on my microphone. Oop, might be a little loud. How about... Okay, so I turned the volume up for the microphone. Is that okay? Oh wow, we got a bunch of people already. Hey, so for people just joining, could you let me know if the microphone is at a super low level? The only thing that's changed recently is that I did switch the battery of my lapel mic, so I'm wondering if it's maybe a little bit lower power. Okay, sounds like it's good now. Sweet. So anyways, yeah, back to what's going on. So if you're watching the pre-recorded version of this video, don't expect timestamps or anything like that. Really what I'm doing here is A, I'm just kind of hopping on the stream because I'm bored, and also B, I'm going to be taking you through the actual process of me live building my new RecyclerView application. I can give you a quick demo probably on the phone, or at least, yeah, I'll give you a really quick demo here, and then we'll hop into coding. Where is it? So this was the part 1 version, and you can see that if you watch the video in the description box, you'll see that. So that's kind of the old look. Let's see if I can, yeah, whatever, you get the point. And then what I've been working on lately is sort of improving the look and making it a little bit more, changing the theme up a little bit. And I will be adding animations and stuff like that. So that's what I'll be working on today. And yeah, let me just open up Notepad and get Android Studio set up here, and we will get started coding. But how is everyone doing today? I'm happy to do some light questions. This is, of course, not my Q&A, but I'm happy to chat. This is a pretty casual stream here today. Okay, so that's funny. All right, yeah, we got a bunch of people. We got Daryl, we got Zleifer. I'm gonna go ahead and make Zleifer a moderator because he's also one of my bros from my Slack group. And yeah, I think we're gonna get started here. So. Oh, sorry, Zleifer. I haven't had a chance to look at your repo yet, but now that you've reminded me, I will do that once I'm finished the stream, because I said I would do that. For anyone curious, basically, if you are a nice person who contributes, not necessarily monetarily, but just, you know, gives good questions and hangs out and stuff like that, I don't mind having a look over your repository to give my input on it if it is asked. And however, I don't have a lot of spare time, so I kind of reserve that for the people who write really good comments and are my wise ass programmers, which is a gender neutral term. And I'm gonna shut up now and we're gonna get to some coding here. So right off the bat, I do have a little bit of a question. So Monique is asking if I can explain simply what a RecyclerView is. So I can do that and kind of work it into what I'm doing already. So this is the repository here, RecyclerView pre-built, and you should be able to find it down in the description box. If not, it's in my GitHub. It's all in the GitHub. And I was just about to start writing a new unit test. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a little note here so that I don't forget. And the test I was going to write was on add, what was it? On add new. I will answer your question in a second, because that is a good general question. What the hell is a RecyclerView? All right, so we're gonna call this test, what are we doing here? On create new list item, click. So what is a RecyclerView? I'm gonna keep this as a really brief explanation, but let's think. So one of the most common things you'll need to do in almost any app which is useful, except for maybe like a GPS-based app or an app which really primarily leverages some system service or something like that, almost any application you make will need to display and handle large data sets. So for the easiest example I could give you is, I'm assuming you have Facebook or some social media, your timeline on Facebook, so each post by all these different people. Obviously that's an enormous data set which you can scroll through. That's the important thing. So I've got the application open right now, and on the screen you see we've got all these different list items, and I can scroll the data set. So why do we have the recycler view? Well, originally we had this thing called the list view, which some of you may be familiar with, maybe not all of the newer developers. And so basically the list view was the prototype of the recycler view. And how it kind of worked is, let me pull up a visual aid here. I'll paste the site just into the comments here for anyone curious. All right, just one moment. So, and this is, oops, yeah, that was a fail. Okay, that's better. So basically what RecyclerView is it's a widget which allows us to display, I'm just trying to find a good example here. Yeah, that's totally out of the screen, Ryan. There we go. Oh, and this is the Windows 10 thing. I've got like a half a pixel area with which I can select this window to resize it. Oh yeah, I love that. Yep, this is great. You know what? I'm just not even going to resize it because Windows 10 doesn't want to let me resize. Oh, I saw it. Oh, come on. Come on. Oh man, I want to do some swearing. Tabarnak de calice. That's French Canadian. I shibar. That's Korean. Okay, yeah, forget it. I'm not going to waste my time. So let's find a recycler view. So what is so originally we had this thing called a list view, and oh, this is irritating me. Why can't I resize this window? I'm really sorry, but I'm borderline OCD sometimes. And this is bugging the crap out of me. Okay, I guess I can drag it from that side. My apologies, back with the demo. I don't know why it keeps moving stuff around. Let's find a recycler view. This is a great explanation, eh? Okay, so originally we had this thing called the list view, and all it did was it displayed a bunch of list items. So I want you to think of each of these things in the in this user interface. Doesn't matter what app this is. Each of these things is going to be represented by some class, some model object. So if I open up my project, I've actually called this class sort of the most general name possible, which is list item. And a list item, it'll have whatever you need. It might have a date, it might have a message, it might have a drawable. So if I was designing this thing, it would probably have like a subject, it would have like a preview, the contact name, the contact avatar. So for example, if you're opening up your email inbox and you want to display a whole bunch of different list items, whatever those items are composed of, and they can be composed of cards. You can have a recycler view full of cards as well. I won't show that now, but yeah. So here's the thing though, why do we need the recycler view when we had the list view? So the problem with the list view is that when you ran into large data sets, here's the thing, like, let's say I have 50 items and I want to display, we'll go back down to this picture here. This is from the material design website, by the way, so that's why I don't mind referencing it directly in the video, but hopefully they don't mind. I guess if they do, they'll sue me. So let's say I have to display 50 of these. Well, obviously I don't want the device to draw all of these items, and by draw I mean inflate. So if I hop over to my recycler view code, you're going to notice that there is a method called onCreateViewHolder, which inflates a list item, or it inflates an item data layout, which is simply the layout, the layout, oh yeah, whatever, the layout that sort of represents this Java class. So obviously I don't want to be inflating 50 of these at once. That would be a horrible waste of resources, and that would just be terrible. Well, that was kind of how the list view worked out of the box. Now, what we ended up doing, the solution that was formed to solve the problem, was to implement this thing called the view holder pattern. Now, it's kind of, let me explain it this way. So let's say I've got my app, I've got my recycler view items, and let's say the data set is like 50 long, and I want to scroll the whole list. This list only has 12 items, but let's just say there's 50 items I want to scroll through. So I have to ask you, what makes more sense? Drawing 50 items off screen, which would take a really long time and would make the phone just crap out probably. You'd probably run out of memory. Or would it make sense to draw maybe I don't know, 10 of these, I don't know what the actual number is, 10 of these items. And as the user scrolls through their phone, you recycle them, you reassign these so that you're not actually scrolling through a list of 50 items, but rather what you are doing is you are recycling, reassigning the items as you scroll. So that's the basic idea of the recycler view in sort of simple language. Why do we need it? Why do we use it? It's a view which helps us display very large or just large data sets quite seamlessly. And it's also something which the Android team has spent an enormous amount of energy into giving us all kinds of useful tools to animate it, to make it look pretty, to make it function well. So in a nutshell, that is what the recycler view is, and hopefully that answers your question. Sorry, that might have been a little bit loud in front of the microphone there. Anyways, let's see if we got some comments. We have some comments. So I've got a whole bunch of questions going on. I do have to remind people, my Q&A video is on Sundays. If you guys could do me a favor, I do see there are some good questions though, so if you guys could do me a favor, if you get the chance, message me on YouTube or Facebook or something and ask these questions, send them to my inbox, and I will answer them extensively on, I will answer them extensively during my live stream Q&A, but unfortunately I'm only going to answer like one more question, then I actually have to get some of my own work done. But let's just have a quick look here. So Amcan Tech is asking if I'm using OBS Studio, and yes, I'm using OBS Studio. Also, I will do a recycler view with cards probably. The thing about it, so the thing about doing a recycler view with cards is that it's actually really the only extra step is simply using the card widget. There's also maybe some extra steps when it comes to setting up on-click listeners within the card. And there's a couple things that the card can allow you to do a little bit easier, like elevations and stuff. But to be honest, like using cards with a recycler view, it's not really an extra complicated thing. You just need to learn how to use the card view layout and use that as a recycler view item. Like I could change, oh sorry, I'll switch to code, that would help. I could change, come on brain, you can do this. I could change item data to just have like the root layout as a, I don't think I've imported it, so it probably went autocomplete, but just do the card view layout and play around it. But I will probably do a branch of the recycler view with cards or something like that. Ow. And yeah. And one last quick look. All right, so let's get started here. So gonna be a little while before I answer questions, but stick around and I might get to them eventually. So what I'll be doing today is I'm gonna hit just Control N, and I'm going to type controller test. And this is the test that I will be writing. So it might be a little bit useful to talk about some TDD here. So what I've done is the activity is sort of my view, and I added a button to it, which is called Fabulous, because whenever I create a floating action button, I always call it Fabulous. I don't know why. Just seems right. And yeah, so I added this button here, and then I added it into the view and set up the on-click listener. Now kind of the next step would be to write the controller implementation of it, which will be in here. And I think I did start writing some of the implementation a little bit. However, I'm not going to be writing, and this is kind of key here, I'm not actually going to be writing the implementation of this on-click event in the controller first, but rather I'm going to be writing it in the controller unit test first. Now, I really don't need to do that because handling an on-click event is something I've done hundreds and hundreds of times, and it's really not that difficult. However, if you're following test-driven development, which I would suggest is something you look into, TDD, then what we basically do in TDD is we'll generally write our tests, use the information we get from the test to inform the implementation, try and run the test. It will fail, just make sure it's running, and then write the implementation in the class we're testing, and then do that until the test passes. Once the test passes, you're done. So it's a very straightforward and systematic approach, and that's the approach that I will be taking today as much as possible. But sometimes I'm lazy, sometimes I don't write the tests. You know, it is what it is. So I'm just going to copy this one. By the way, if you're curious about what all this testing stuff is and you're a beginner, and actually if you're curious about like literally anything in this code, my suggestion would be to go and check out the series just down in the description box below, because I literally show you how to build the entire thing on camera. So just a heads up there. And this is going to be on create new list item, click. Oops, that was a fail. So we're going to call this on create new list item, click. And of course we're using Mockito. So let's think of what we're doing. So the first thing is, of course, which unit are we testing? We're going to be testing this create new list item method or unit. It can be a bit confusing with unit testing because they use the word unit, and then I was all like, well, what's a unit? Is it a method? Is it a class? What is it? The answer is that yes to all of those. The way I like to do unit tests is I like to keep them very condensed, and they test my app's behavior. I won't generally use unit testing to, for example, test, well, I don't know, you get the idea. I'm generally just trying to test behavior, but when you're doing testing, there's different approaches, there's different opinions, and there's different things that you are trying to do with your tests. In this case, I'm trying to test my app's behavior. So, controller.onListItem click. So that's actually going to be on, what did I call it? Create new list item. And I don't think that has parameters, does it? Nope. All right. So the first thing, of course, I've got the steps up here. Call the method which you wish to test on the controller. There we go. So I want to test that method. Is there anything I need to, what might this method need to talk to? So we're creating a, sorry, let me zoom in, that would help. So we're creating a new list item, and I've got this thingy called fake data source. So what I'm trying to do here really is, if we look at this controller class, you'll notice it's talking to a view interface, it's talking to a data source, and what I'm trying to simulate is basically communications between multiple layers of the application. Now, because it's a fake data source, which the controller isn't actually aware of, I want to kind of simulate what would happen if I was talking to a real data source, so that way I can swap them in as I desire. And so what I'm going to need to do is, if I was writing this for real, it would make sense for create new list item to be talking to some kind of service that creates a list item. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to then logically say, well, it's going to be talking to fake data source. So what I'll do is, using Mockito, I'll say Mockito.verify. Nope. Mockito. What is it? When? It's early in the morning. I'm sorry. What is the friggin' thing? When? Okay, it is when. Then return. So Mockito.when.then return. So in when, we're going to say Mockito.when fake. No. When data source. Yes. Dot create and get new list item. Zoom out a little bit. So when this method, when the controller calls this method on our data source, which is of course a mock, and I talk about what that is in the video, so I won't explain it now. It's a test double. So when this method is called, I want to return a new list item. So I think I have a test item I can return. Yeah. So for the purpose of the test, I'm just going to say, just return this static list item up here that's just for testing purposes. It's called test item. We're just going to do that. And yeah, create blah, blah, blah. So here's the thing, like normally how this would work is instead of coming in here and being like data source dot get list data and then saying list item new item equals that. ¿Qué pasa? Java util list? Sorry, one sec. Need to fix this. That would be data source interface. List item. Oh, get list of data, of course. Get. So here's the thing. I'm gonna rename this because this is already pissing me off. This is gonna be called just get new list item. Because I know that when I'm confusing myself with my own names, that's a bad sign and a sign that I need to refactor something. Anyways, as I was saying, so it wouldn't normally work like this. You wouldn't normally just say to the data source, get me a new list item, because normally this data source would be asynchronous, as I explain up here. However, for the purposes of this application, we're just going to return the list item because it's generated instantly by our fake data, not instantly, but synchronously by the data source. And we're not going to get too bugged out about handling that stuff because this is basically a beginner tutorial, beginner to intermediate, I'd say. So I've mocked this method, and when the controller calls this method on our fake data source, our mock data source, it's going to return a test item. So what do we want to do with that test item is the next question. Makoto.verify. So when I create a new list item, naturally I'm going to want to add it to the user interface, I think is a safe thing. So let's see, did I create a method on the view to add a new list item? So I'm going to open up view interface, and view interface is of course the contract. So this is the first place I'm going to look to see what my view is supposed to do. Yo, rapping. I'm sorry, that was horrible. And unintentional rap is unintentional and bad. So start detail activity, let's say we're going to create a new method here, which is going to be void add list item to view. And surprisingly, that's going to be taking a list item as a parameter. Now, of course, I haven't written this in the view, but that's totally fine because our controller doesn't really care. It doesn't need to care. So what I'm going to do next is, the next step is to sort of verify whatever. Let's just steal that. Next step is to verify the behavior of the view based on the event. So in this case, I'm going to want to call just an interesting sidebar. This is how my brain works. I wrote that method like 15 seconds ago. I decided on the name of it. I've already forgotten it. That's how bad I am at remembering words. All right. That method was called add list item to view. I don't know what it is, but my brain just does not do very well. Okay, and of course I'm going to want to return test item because just to have some form of consistency. And I've had issues before using static. Well, we'll see if it works now. I've had issues before using static test data. I don't think it'll be an issue here because we're not actually... Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem, but that was more issues in clean architecture and stuff like that. So, yeah, create new list item. So the main thing we're doing here, here's what we're doing. Here is what we are doing. So, the user clicks the add button, which fires this method. The controller is going to say to the data source, get me a new list item. The mocked data source or the real one, doesn't really matter, is going to do that. And then the next logical thing that should happen is, of course, we want to display that on the screen. So hopefully I'm kind of demonstrating to you basically how, by figuring this stuff out in the test and taking like an extra couple minutes to write the test first, it's actually going to help me write the implementation in the class I'm testing quicker. Now again, if you're writing a simple method, you don't necessarily need a test for it. However, let me tell you, when your methods and your presenters and controllers, and I think some, I think you can also write unit tests for your repository pattern layer, some crap like that, whatever, I don't care. But writing the tests helps you write the implementation quicker. And by implementation, I mean the code in the actual class, not the code in the test. So the next thing I'm going to do, this basically does what I want it to do so far. Maybe I'll change my mind on that, but the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to run this test. Now the reason why I'm running it, sort of knowing that it's going to fail, is that I just want to make sure that the test runs, because sometimes tests aren't well formed, and that's sort of your first issue. And here it's telling me that I need to add the method I just wrote to the view. So I'm going to click on this red part, hit Alt-Enter, hit Implement Methods, and I'm just going to make a to-do. I don't need to make a to-do, but I'm just trying to show you some good practices here. Write this, or I would say implement this in the view. It's just a good little note to, I mean, if I didn't write this, I would find it eventually, because if you don't write your view, you're going to know that when you run the app, but it's always good to leave little notes. So let's try and run this again. See what else will go wrong. Boom, and it failed, which is perfect. So I don't really need to look at this crap because I know the implementation isn't proper yet. So I'm just going to jump right into the controller. And based on what I see, what I've decided in this test, we're going to work this thing out. So that was the first part. We're going to say list item new item equals data source.get new list item. So the controller says, hey, get me the list item, get me a new one. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to call, quite unsurprisingly, view dot add list item to view. Let's see if the test passes. It does! So for anyone curious about TDD, that is TDD live in a simple method really quickly, and why it helps you and stuff like that. So hopefully that is useful. I'm going to run a quick commercial break, and I will also take some questions after I've rested my voice for a moment. By the way, if you've liked the show so far, please do me a favor and hit the like button down below. By the way, just as a side note, if I do seem darker than I was before, I have actually been out in the sun a whole bunch, and it's kind of funny. So like on this side, you know, still pretty white, and then if I show you the underarm, whoa, white as a ghost. That's it. Just as a funny side note, I have heard that in places like Thailand, or I think mostly in Asia, India, Asia, that, well, India's in Asia, but in Asia, I think it's kind of amusing because I have heard that most people there, they don't really want to tan that much because I guess sort of the social sort of conditioning is that if you're tanned, then it means you work outside a lot or you work in farms and you might be, I don't know, it just seems like people want to stay as white as possible. And then it's funny because in Canada and North America and all that stuff, we're always trying to tan. Like we're always trying to get darker because we're angry because of how, like you can almost see the shade difference there. So it's just funny how different cultures like, or just different areas, like these people over here want to stay as white as possible, then the white people want to tan as much as possible, and it's just hilarious. Human beings are funny to me. So do we have any questions? So Daryl is asking how I would test an asynchronous method. That's an interesting question. You know, I don't have a complete answer to that, Daryl. Just give me one moment. I'm gonna, just in case someone ends up watching this, this is a question from my boy Daryl, and so the question is, how would you test an asynchronous method? So let's say you've got a method like in a remote source and you can only get back the results in a listener. How would you test that properly? So the thing about that is I'm kind of thinking you might need to work. I don't really know, to be honest. Here's my approach. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna open up Pause Trainer and the stream's gonna lag a little bit. So just give me a couple moments, and once it's done loading, I'll have a quick look. But that is a super interesting question, and it's really important. Okay, we are done the Gradle build. YouTube apparently isn't crapping out, so let's have a look at. So the thing is, I've thought about this myself, and oh yeah, I'm not sure if you can hear that in the background, but there's a garbage truck outside making all kinds of noises. Let's say a reminder. Detail test. Let's open up reminder detail presenter. So I don't really, the thing is, I don't really know. The way that I've kind of been getting around that in my clean architecture, and I'm not technically, well, let me just explain what I do, and Daryl, you're smart enough to draw your own conclusions, of course. What I do is, for example, so this is an example, a sample unit test here. So let's see, when get reminder. So when this feature first runs, the first thing it does is it gets a reminder ID which is passed in. That is partially off screen, sorry about that. It gets a reminder ID which is just passed in as an activity extra, and then it asks the reminder use case for the reminder, and it runs out stuff using RxJava for callbacks. So kind of the thing, the way that I've got it set up now is this works fine. Like, I can test different callbacks, different results, simply by just based on which observable I return. So of course observable.just, or where's a failure, observable.error, etc. And so I kind of cheat, essentially. Like, I am mocking the, of course I've mocked the reminder service, so it's just returning kind of what I want it to. I do have the real use cases, of course, when I'm testing. Yeah, but I'm not entirely sure. At the very least, Daryl, hopefully that gives you some idea, but that's the way that I kind of go about testing asynchronous sources. And of course, this is something I'm sure Daryl's aware of, but just for the other people listening, if you're wondering about testing with RxJava and stuff like that, one of the important things is that you need to make sure that you provide a you use schedulers.trampoline, I believe it's called. I'll go ahead and open up my scheduler. Where's the other one? Immediate scheduler provider. Yeah, so whenever you're running your tests, you want to be, of course, using the schedulers.trampoline. What I've done is I've actually used different source sets to sort of, when I want to switch to my tests, I switch to the mock source set, and then all of my schedulers, which are my scheduler which gets created here and gets passed into the presenter. When I'm in mock, it's going to return schedulers.trampoline. When I'm in production, it's going to return the appropriate schedulers. And so I basically just, that's basically how I approach testing with my current architecture. But I'm not sure if that helps you much or what, but let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure. The thing about it, I don't actually know what is best practice per se for what you're talking about, because I know with Mockito and a number of other frameworks, or even I think RxJava, like, they do have, I think Mockito has this argument captor thing and a couple different things which you can use to sort of do a better job of kind of my quick hacky way of testing it. So I think there are better ways to do it, but I don't really have experience with those. If you figured them out, then let me know, Daryl. All right, anyways. So let's jump back to doing some coding here. And not in POS Trainer. All right, so what I'm going to do is, of course, as I am coding, I am crossing stuff off of my checklist as I complete it, which is just a good practice to get into. At least for me, I have a hard time focusing, so it always helps to think on paper. So I've added the add button. And the next thing we're going to do is swipe to delete And I'm going to do that. I'm going to implement that via a snack bar. So just give me one moment, and I'm just going to open up a repository which implements snack bar. And hopefully I don't forget to switch back to code once I'm done doing that. If I do, you have every right to scream at me, whoever's watching. Did I add snack bars, or do I need to add a thing here? I think snack bars are in the design library, but let me just double check. Yeah, they must be. Okay. So what I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to look into implementing snack bar and and swipe to delete. And the reason why I'm doing that is I find the snack bar to be like the ideal sort of visual pattern to use for undoing actions like swipe to delete. So that's why I would use the snack bar in particular. So I'm just going to have to find the class which uses that. And if I recall correctly, that should be profile page. And I'm also going to be looking at how I implement it here, because it is a little tricky. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to copy and paste this method and slap it into my RecyclerView tutorial here. And it's my code, so I can do what I want. I just know I'm going to be using most of this code here, so show logout snack bar. However, also knowing that this is not going to be implemented necessarily 100%. All right, so let's think about what happens with the snack bar. So swipe to delete concerns. So swipe to delete, it's not the most complicated thing, but it does present one kind of challenge, which is something to sort of think about. And I haven't actually thought about this challenge in a little while, so you will be getting to see me figure this out again. So the first thing that happens is the user swipes an item out of the RecyclerView. Intention to delete, or accident, or unintentional. And then 2A would be nothing else happens, item gets deleted. 2B, user wishes to undo delete operation. So what I'm talking about here is when someone swipes an item out of the RecyclerView, the thing about it is it's easy to handle in our demo application. However, there's kind of a concern you need to think about in a real application. And what that concern is so once the, do I have italics? No, I don't have italics here. Should you delete the item from the data source right away? Should you wait, let's say wait until user leaves the activity before deleting? Should you delete right away but hold on to the deleted item and its position and rewrite the item to the database if the user hits undo. So why is this a concern? Why is this kind of something that I'm talking slowly and sounding prophetic over? So the thing about this is when you're dealing with a real database, or maybe you might be dealing with a remote server, you need to be really careful about when to delete things. And you need to be careful. So let's say, for example, in a perfect world, the user would swipe the item, and then maybe after 30 seconds or just after the user leaves the activity, I would then say to the remote server, hey, the user swiped this thing, delete this record. Now, there's a couple problems with doing that. Like, the first thing is, it's not a major problem, but if you wait until the user leaves the activity, which they might not do immediately, or the app might crash before it has a chance to send that response to the server, or just stuff like that, I don't think that's really a good way to handle the situation. Maybe it is. It's kind of tough to say at this point. There's different approaches you could take. The way that I kind of like to handle the situation so far, and I might change my opinion on this, but what I kind of like to do is I like to delete the item immediately. So the user swipes the item, I get the position in the item itself, and I say to whatever service or database I'm talking to at the time, I say to it, delete this record. And then I think what I would do is I would hold on to that record. Just trying to think, would I hold on to it with a view model? How would I hold on to it? Oh, and I hear the garbage truck just outside, so that's going to be really loud. Just give me one moment. There's different ways. There's different ways you could go about handling this situation. And what I'm going to do now is look at the comments just for a quick moment, and then I'll hop back into yeah, the undo is interesting, as Daryl comments. Let's hop back into code and let's just kind of think about this objectively. So, should you delete the item from the data source right away? I think that's this way there's almost no chance that the data store, whatever data store is this basically, to the best of my understanding, this eliminates situations where the user says, hey, I want to delete this thing, and then maybe something happens and then it's not deleted, which is frustrating. When the user deletes something, they want it to go away. So if you delete it right away, then immediately you've got consistency between your view and your data source. So another thing we could do, yeah, the way I'm going to handle this is I'm going to delete the item right away. And then I'm just going to see, where can I hold on to the item temporarily? I almost feel like I would have to use some kind of view model. That's an interesting problem. Like, the other way to handle it is to not delete the item. All right, I'm going to rewrite this. So as I've thought about it I only see two reasonable paths here. So path A, actually I won't call it path A, path 1, just to avoid confusion here. So path 1, delete the item right away, but hold on to a copy and be prepared to add the copy back into the data store if the user clicks undo. Path 2, delete the item from the view, but wait for some event. I'm not sure yet what. Wait for some event before telling the data store to go ahead with the delete operation. So the thing about these two paths, this is such an interesting problem to me, because in a lot of cases, the solution is very, oh, that's a little bit too big. Let's just do that. So with path 1, so just some thoughts, like this helps us this is essentially an easier thing to do in most cases. It's pretty rare that the user will unintentionally swipe an item away. It can happen, but it's pretty rare. So the nice thing about this thing is the user swipes it, it's deleted. We don't really have to worry about it that much, unless of course the user hits the undo button. Then it's a little bit more difficult to deal with undo. Whereas with this approach, it's annoying because we need to add logic to hold on to the view state, the state of the potentially deleted item, and we need to have logic to sort of dictate when to actually tell the data store to delete it. And the thing I really don't like about path 2 is that, let's say for example, the user swipes the thing, the view basically is saying that it's deleted. The user swipes the thing out. The view, as far as the view is concerned, it's gone. However, if for some reason the phone crashes, the activity stops, or just something like that happens, then the user's going to navigate back to that activity and they're going to see that item that they just deleted popped up again. Now, I guess at the end of the day, what this kind of comes down to is, and this is something I've been wondering a lot about, if I could kind of this is an interesting problem. If I could be like reasonably certain that when the user navigates away from the activity that the item will actually delete, and if I kind of say, well, you know what, if the app crashes, if the phone crashes in the middle or just before I've told the data source to delete the item, and I've taken approach 2, should I really be that worried about that level of edge case? I don't know. It's such an interesting thing for me to try and figure out. I'm just gonna see if we have any comments. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing, Daryl. The thing that I'm stuck on is like, I kind of want to do approach 1. The problem with it is where to store that item temporarily, because I don't really want to be, I'm not going to be storing it in the view, that's just bad. But do I really want to like create, I could have, I could just store like a member variable in the controller or presenter or whatever. Yeah. I don't think I need to use view model for it is the thing I'm trying to figure out here. And then what I could do is in, for example, on stop, I could tell it to, if the user hasn't hit undo by the time on stop has been called, then I think it's safe at that point to let go of to let go of the, wait a minute. Okay, look, that could work. I normally really prefer to do this on pencil and paper, but just for my viewers today, I will do this in TextPad, and it's going to irritate me, but I'll try and do it anyway. Okay. Add a temporary member variable to controller/presenter. When user swipes go ahead with delete from data source. Set member, let's just say set variable, set temp variable to deleted item, possibly with position in, yeah, I would want to store the position in the recycler view as well, I would think. Possibly with position in adapter as well, because that way I can insert it back to the original point. Set the temp variable to delete item. How does snack bar work? Just give me 1 second here, so here's what I'm thinking. I think what I can do is, once the snack bar has disappeared, that might be the time to go ahead and do the delete option, or if on destroy is, or on stop is called. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so if, okay, so there are 2 scenarios. So yeah, set the temp variable to delete item and the position. Okay, so add a temporary variable, add 2 temporary member variables to controller and presenter. The item we may wish to undo deletion, position of said item in adapter. Right. When user swipes, assign these variables and proceed to tell the data source to delete. And then there are 2 things that can happen. So number 1, if snack bar dialog disappears. At that point, the user no longer has a way to undo, and also I can safely assume that at that point, if they wanted to undo, then I don't really care. It's user error at that point. If snack bar dialog disappears, set temp vars to null, or so that's 3A. I really prefer to do this on paper with pencil, but whatever. Or if I'm just gonna say onStop. I don't think we need to go crazy with onDestroy. Or if onStop called in fragment, also set temp vars to null. So the important thing. Wait, do I need to bother doing that? No, I feel like I only need to do 3A. Yeah. Why do I even need to worry about onStop? I think we've got it. I think we've got the solution. So if, yeah, so the last piece of this puzzle is I need to see if what the snack bar's actual callbacks are, just to make sure that I have some way of knowing when it disappears. And I'm pretty sure it has that, but let me just look that up really quick. All right, snack bar. Okay, and this is, of course, the developer's website. And it should have, yeah, snack bar callback. Okay, here's what I want. This is what I want exactly. On dismissed of the snack bar. Now, I'm wondering how long can I set when it times out? I'm assuming that would be the case. Add callback. Huh. Wow, that's a mouthful. Base transient bottom bar. Okay, well, whatever. I should be able to do what I think I want to do, and I'm pretty happy with that solution. So, oops. All right, so let's just run through this kind of thing here one more time. So the user is going to swipe an item out of the recycler view. So what I'm going to do finally is I'm going to write kind of a problem statement, and then we'll go into the code to write the unit test, and then I'm going to call it a day there. But this has been a fun experience. For me anyways. It's probably pretty boring to watch, but that's okay. Pas de problème. Okay. So user swipes an item out of the recycler view. 2A, because it's kind of two steps in one. Tell the data source to delete the item. 2B. since we're working with a controller here, basically have the controller temporarily store the item and the position of the item in adapter. 3. On snack bar dismissed, release temporary items, because now the user no longer has any way to engage in an undo operation, so it's safe to delete it at that point. And again, we're going to say 3A. And then 3B, if undo is pressed, clicked. If undo is clicked, add the temp item back into the data source. And animate back into the view. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So those solutions there. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to call it a day there because I've got a bunch of other stuff to deal with today. But just for a couple moments, if there are any other questions or comments or anything like that, I will stick around for another 2 minutes. And if that is not the case, then I will bid you adieu, as they say in Quebec. J'ai parlé un petit français. That's my best Quebecois accent. Hey man, cherche dans ma trunk pour mon spare tire, call this. Oh man, if my francophone friends could hear me, they'd probably want to kill me right now. C'est beau les joueurs. All right, and it looks like we have no questions or comments, so I will call it a day for today. Thank you for watching. Hopefully that was entertaining, and I will be doing my live stream Q&A on Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time, which is 8:30 p.m. India Standard Time. Thank you for watching, and have a good evening or day or whatever.